Alright, welcome back. In this third video, we're going to be going over a couple of things. One is adding the player to our scene. We're going to be talking a little bit about the sprite editor, adjusting the pixel size and sprite modes to be able to cut up a sprite sheet. We're going to go over changing the modes so that things aren't blurry or anything like that. And then I'm also going to show you guys how to calculate, the sprite sizes that you need based on a sprite sheet. Now we're going to talk about sorting layers. So let's get started. In our pixel art assets that we got, this Sunnyland collection asset from itch.io. It was created by the user Asimov. Go ahead and check them out when you get a chance. They've got a few good games, and then this asset is phenomenal. So let's go with our character. If we look at our players here in our folder, we have a fire imp, a fox, a squirrel, and what's called Sunny Bunny. Let's go ahead and click on Foxy. In this asset pack, he's already got things kind of broken out for you. But if you're in a situation where all you have is this one sprite sheet, and then we need to figure out how to determine the amount of sprites that we need. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, let's go ahead and bring this up larger for you so you guys can see. And we're going to need our calculator, so let's go to our Windows, type in calculator, and there's our calculator. So let's determine our Y value first. Okay, so going down the sprite sheet, we know that the total size is 198 by 384 pixels, and that's width and height. Okay, so we know that our first number is going to be 384 for our height. If we count the amount of sprites there are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we just divide that by 12, and we get a nice even 32. So we know that each pixel sprite, or each sprite, right, is 32 pixels in height. The next thing we need to do is determine our width, right? So we know that the total width is 198, and then our longest animation consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sprites, okay, for both of these. So we'll divide that by 6, and we get 33. So 33 is obviously close to 32. So, but what we know here is that it's not exactly 32. This means that there's at least one pixel of padding that's going to be in between each sprite on the x-axis. So if we're going to cut this one up, I'm going to minimize that because we'll need that again here in a little bit for the next one. Let's go ahead and try this again. Shrink this down. There we go. Alright. When we open the sprite editor, it's all one sheet, and that's not what we want. So let's close this. We're going to switch this sprite mode to be multiple because we want to create multiple sprites out of it. Okay. We could set this to 32. Okay. But then it's not going to be in line with our current environment. Okay. Our environment assets are actually 16 pixels per unit. So we're going to change this to match it. We're going to go 16 pixels per unit. And then we're going to go ahead and press apply for now. You see it's already cut it some, right? That's because I've already had it cut. But if we didn't, right, and if it looked, let's see. When you get it, it's going to be something like this, okay? and you'll press automatic, you'll slice it, and you're gonna get something that looks like this. That's not what we want because we know what our sprite sizes are gonna be. So let's go ahead and click on automatic. So if you haven't already, click on sprite, slice, go to type, choose grid set by cell size, and we're going to change this. You'll probably see that it's actually going to be 0 like this. We can slice it, right? So what we want actually though is we're going to go ahead and go with 32 because we know our size, 32, 32, 32. We're going to add that 1 in there and we're going to slice it up just like that. And now we've got nice even spacing. Pivot points aren't too far away from each other. We're good there. Okay. And everything is 32 by 32 pixels. Alright. So now that we have that, we can hit apply, close that up, and we open this up. We have our sprites here. Okay. So let's go ahead and grab this one over here. And for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and rename it as player for now. If we look at it, there's a few things we need to edit on it. Okay, so one of those things is that it's a little bit blurry, and it's also showing up behind all of this, or the foreground. We got lucky; it's drawn above the, in front of the background and the middle ground trees, but we need to definitely fix this part. One of the ways that we're gonna do that is, let's start with the blurriness factor. So we're gonna go over here, click on your sprite sheet, the main sprite sheet, and we're gonna come over this way into the inspector. We're gonna look for filter mode, and under filter mode, we click on it. There's 3 options here. Its default is bilinear. We want point. We don't want a filter in there. And if we press apply, you see that it cleans up and the lines get crisp and fresh. In some cases, depending on how good or how the quality of the art, not quality, resolution. We're gonna say resolution, right? If you're making retro games to mimic older systems, the max size might be lower here, right? And then you can change it to, if you had 256, and you can change the compression to from normal to, wait, where is it? There we go. This is what I wanted. I don't know how we ended up on Android. So if you notice some discoloration, right? We don't have any here. You can always change the quality of the compression. In the original asset pack that came out a few years ago, before he updated it to include all these sprite sheets, there was some discoloration here in like this bluish tint, and if you just went and pressed on none and you pressed apply, it would get rid of it. But as you can see, it really didn't do anything, so we can leave it on normal. I don't think it's going to hurt that much. So and if we need to adjust it later, we can always do so real quickly. So next is for the sorting layers. So if we're looking at our grid and our background layers, everything is on default. Now I adjusted the order in the layer while I was making this level, and we'll do a video on using tile maps in Unity in a few videos from now. So don't worry if you haven't. If you don't know how to do that, we will get to that. But what we need to do is actually add some layers. The way we're going to do that is in our inspector with any of these sprites selected, right? So in this case, you guys probably just have the player, so we're going to go ahead and do that. With the player selected, we're going to go ahead and go into sorting layer, and we're going to just select where it says default and choose add sorting layers. Now we need to add the player for sure, so we know that, right? So if we click on it, we'll type in player for now. We need to add something for the background. I'll put the background and the middle ground on one layer just to limit the amount of sorted layers I have, and then I'll learn how to type. And then I'm going to add the foreground. Now, the way it is now won't work. It's still going to have these issues with drawing things, because the way sorting layers works is whatever is the topmost layer is what's drawn first. So just for cleanliness and organizing, we're actually going to move these layers up some. So let's go ahead and move layer 2 up or the background layer up to layer 0. We're going to go ahead and move the foreground layer up above the player. And for now, we'll just leave the default right there at layer 1. That's not going to be that serious. And let's go ahead and add these up. So let's put the player, for now, we're going to put him on the player. We can leave the order in layer 0. The foreground, we're going to go ahead and put that on the foreground layer. And we're going to change the order to 0 because we don't need to adjust its order since it's on its own layer. Now the grass, the middle ground, and the background maps, we need to put on we're going to put all 3 on the background layer. Now the order still stayed the same, which is perfectly fine for what we want, but keep in mind, if you did something like I did where you had 3 separate tile maps just to get the real background effect that you wanted, then you're going to need to change, unless you add a bunch of different sorting layers, then you need to want to play with these orders and layers, right? And the order and layers, so if we set the middle ground to -1, you can see that it went behind everything, okay? So the background map is on 0. If we want the middle ground, all those trees to appear, we need to actually put that, since it's on the same layer, on 1, okay? Sometimes you can get away with 0 and it won't do anything too detrimental, but if you keep them on the same order and layer, then you run the risk of some drawing issues in the editor and in the game. So it's just better to just increase it by 1. This grass, I only put it on a separate map because it messed with the colliders for the foreground. When we get into the tile map, I'll go into that in more detail and why I did what I did, but that's on order layer 2 and also sorting layer background. Alright, let's see. So that's probably gonna be, no, that's not gonna be it. We got one more thing to do. I'm kidding. So what if though you had a character like this where you weren't quite sure what the size was, okay? So again, we take our calculator, right? We know that the dimensions are 720 by 58, okay? There's only one row of sprites, so we already know that our Y for the pixels is going to be 58. But there's one, if we bring this up, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pixels or sprites across. So we take 720, divide that by 8, and we get 90. Okay? So if we run through the same process, sprite mode, multiple, we're going to still set this to 16. That way it, size-wise, when we put it in here, it looks like it fits and goes together. We already know when you're going to need to do the point because otherwise it'll be blurry. We'll just hit apply, and it's already broken out. So let's go up here into the sprite editor. I've already put those in here, right, because I was testing this beforehand to make sure it was going to work. But if we had left it as 32 by 32 with that 1 pixel, because that's what we used in the last character. As you can see, it will save your most recent thing. You can change it here with grid by cell size. Okay, we can remove the padding because we won't need that for that. It's not built for the padding, just like the before, or like the last one. We hit slice, and now we have everything, right? If you didn't want to do that, there's another way. I'm not a fan of it. On a personal level, I'm not a fan of it because it can be quite annoying if sprites aren't drawn properly. Is you can do grid by cell count, and as long as you know the column amount and the row amount, then you'll be fine, right? So we know there's 1 row across, we know there's 8 columns, so we press slice and it does it. If we had done 6, right, it would slice it into 6, but we know that there's 8, so we change it to 8, and then we still get our desired size, and it still calculates it out for you, seeing 90 by 58. Some cases it may not, so that's why I personally try to stick to the cell size, just a personal preference. But once you have it sliced up, you can press apply and go from there. I'm gonna go ahead and use the squirrel just because there's some sprites that we're going to use for collection items later on, and it just makes sense to have the squirrel. So if we bring the squirrel up here, we have to reset that to player, and then whoops, hold on, let's see, we need to go change. If we need to select all these because we're going to use the squirrel. We're going to go to single is fine. We're going to change this 100 to 16. Otherwise, it's going to be really small like you saw earlier. Go ahead and switch this to point. Press apply. And there you go. Now you can see the squirrels on our level. Whoops. We also need to change our sorting layer for it, which is going to be here. We're going to put this on the player level. And now he's drawn in front of the ground too. Okay. So what we went over is we went over adding the player into our scene, which consisted of cutting sprites, learned about how to calculate the sprite size that you need. We also discussed sorting layers and creating those and how they're ordered and drawn. In the next video, we're going to go over adding player physics. Depending on the time, we might add our first script to the player and then go from there. Okay, but until then, I will see you guys in the next video.